we're live. We're live.
Hello, thunder, lightning.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So, how are you? Good.
I'm okay. I'm pretty well rested this week. Yeah,
Yeah, because you had a weekend in KL, right?
I did. I went for the launch of the MEME, the Elephant Conservation Group module launch. Because I was the editor. I edited in Bahasa Malaysia, the translation. So I was invited to go for the launch and meet with their funders and stuff, which was kind of cool. Yeah.
Okay.
As
Cool.
usual, conservation group like events, you meet other conservationists that you know.
Oh,
And yeah, I met tiger people, and then they were telling me that there's a new tiger reserve in Pahang and stuff like that, which is kind of nice. Yeah,
right. Right.
yeah.
I
Nothing
actually
without
met.
controversy, but it's nice.
Yeah, I met with someone who runs the Rohingya Center here in Soraya.
Right.
And we discussed the development of like an internship program. So it's like a foundational edible education program they're going to do, and then they will do it, in the mornings, and in the afternoon they will do practical work. Um,
Right.
and we also had a general conversation about, she's involved with an NGO called Optimus, and I suggested that a committee of an NGO also needs to
Yeah.
have
Prepared.
some kind of fluency about kind of
Yep.
sustainability. We had a conversation, which is why I sort of triggered the subject for today. Um,
Right.
I'm going to link below what we have discussed, because we actually covered. I want to narrow it down, this conversation to sustainability and enterprise. Like, why would a corporation be interested in having
Yeah.
sustainability as developing sustainability knowledge?
Yep.
And we covered in our podcast, which I will link to here, about the language of sustainability. So we know there are some corporate terms like SDG, ESG, uh, and there's a few others, IFG, whatever. And I'll link up to them. So I thought we would take a deeper dive into it, um, and try to understand, um, not just the what is it, but why. So the first thing is, why would a corporation be interested in doing this? And
Mm.
I have three categories, and you tell me whether this sort of uh, covers it, and if there's others. One is compliance. You're just trying to comply to some rules, which I
Yeah.
which I would then say, who's checking on those rules? Is there anyone
Yeah.
checking on those rules? Then the other one is, if it's not a rule based thing, are they just
Yeah.
keeping up with the market? Is it just like a sort of industry standard that they're trying to do? And then finally, and this is really kind of more my lane, which is, are they trying to make it part of their brand values? Like
Yeah.
if you think about a company like Patagonia, you
Yep.
know, when all that sustainability work is deeply embedded in actually their brand narrative, how they actually manufacture, how they
Yeah.
communicate with their customer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you
And
say
they
those are
use
the
that money, and they use
yeah yeah.
profits to buy back land in Patagonia, and that's part of their trust, their Patagonia trust. Yeah, sustainability
Yeah.
trust. Yeah.
So what about the compliance part? Are they doing it for some form of compliance, and who's checking this?
So you have like ESG in Malaysia is checked by, it's a requirement by Bursa. So if you are taking
Okay, so if you're a Bursa
financial,
company, it is a requirement.
yeah,
I
and then
didn't
if
know
you
that.
want financial access, you
Research,
want to
okay.
utilize financial instruments or products, then you will
Yeah.
have to show compliance. So it's not just good business practice from financing point of view, but good business practice as in alignment to the global goals. Yeah.
So
Because
that's really quite obvious now that I think about it. So access to
yeah,
money, you
yeah.
need to follow, you need to comply.
Put your
What
money
about
where you want it to grow, Yeah.
yeah. What about other areas of compliance? Are there like
ISO,
industry? Huh?
ISO will be the industrial
Oh yeah, which
package.
we sort of covered last time. Yeah.
Mm,
Okay. Okay. So there are some compliance issues, and
yep.
that's something you're going to write up an actual
Yeah.
uh, technical piece that we can refer to,
Yes. Yeah.
and you will reference these compliance elements, right?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. What about just keeping up with the market? Is that something people do as well?
I mean, we hope that people who buy products buy responsibly, because you can have a product, but if people are not buying the product, then it's not changing the space, right? So you want people to go
Yeah, but from an
at
enterprise
plant
point of
based.
view, but from
Yeah,
an
yeah, yeah. So
enterprise point
that's
of
where I'm
view,
coming from. So if
yeah,
I make a plant based product, but sit there by myself, it has to trigger an interest within the consumer market. So you also want consumers to
sure,
meet you
sure,
halfway, you know?
yeah,
So it
yeah.
becomes marketing assets to tell people that, hey,
So
we
it
don't want,
so that's
yeah,
bleeding in that's bleeding into brand values. That means it's like it's adding value to your brand,
yeah,
your product. Yeah, okay,
yeah.
okay. All right. Um, I think that's we can kind of put a little more text into that. Then the other sort of area that I kind of looked at was having done it. How is it
Mhm.
communicated? Because there are some definite pathways. There's
Yeah,
definitely, as you said, if there's a ESG Malaysia, there's documentation that you have to
yeah.
fulfill and have
So I
checked
guess
off.
in a way, award, awards recognize that you're doing good practice,
Let's get that last. That's another category.
right?
Let me start with formal documentation. That means they actually have to form uh, uh, write up a formal document that is
Annual general
compliant.
report. Annual
Uh,
general report. That would be the AGM, their annual report. That would
okay,
be
before
part
that,
of
is there something even more specific? If they have to comply to an ESG Malaysia, isn't there documentation that's specific to that?
that's after, because your internal stakeholders will want to know if you are doing the right thing in your business. And then that gets submitted to the I guess the businesses that you are a part of within the industry. Because at the end of the day, there's no police that goes and checks on these things, you know? There's
Sure.
no ESG police.
No, but you're saying
So
Bursa requires it. So where's Bursa
yes.
reading the
So
fulfillment of the
Bursa is like
requirement?
very high level, very big
Yeah.
companies. But the
Yeah, no, but
small, medium,
what is
they
the
don't.
documentation? What's the documentation? You said that to actually be on Bursa, they need to actually fulfill this requirement. How is that? How is that information communicated? You just froze up. See? Okay, I just messaged Nisha. He lost a connection. How do I do that? Oh no, you're joined. You've joined. I have to end it. Oh, let me try again. Okay, okay. Thanks. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay,
Okay.
there was a thunder on the side, so it just kind of like cut out all the Wi-Fi.
Um,
Uh,
why didn't you use your data? Your
I was
data.
on data and I was on the Wi-Fi here, so I just killed the Wi-Fi. So I'm just data now.
Okay, because data is more stable than Wi-Fi. Okay.
Mm,
Yeah. So yeah, what I was asking is actually, you know, company reports is one pathway. Yeah, that you will have some kind of information about compliance. But if
yeah,
there's very specific compliance, that means if you want to join Bursa, you must comply with these things. Is that
yeah.
just part of them reviewing your annual report and seeing those things checked off, or is there a separate kind of document?
I think it's
It's
a
just
separate
how.
document. It's
Yeah,
a
so it's
separate
quite
document.
formal, lah.
It's
There's
more
quite
formal. Yeah,
formal.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Otherwise, then you start to go into just annual reporting requirements, and corporations annual reporting
It's all
is
positive,
quite.
overly positive. Yeah,
Yeah, it's quite diverse. Like, if you're a big company, it's more complicated. You have more information. If you're a small company, it's very basic. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and it's really, I mean, the target is also quite specific. You're talking to shareholders, you're talking to financiers, you're talking to, it's a money
Yeah.
conversation, right? Yeah. Okay. Then we move on to sort of a more, I know, there is one element of it which is broader. I mean, some people will look at your company report who are not, they're just interested in your company. They might read your company report,
Yeah.
but they're actually more likely to learn about your sustainability. What are you doing in terms of through your online or social platforms, right? Your website.
So there's also certifications. So for instance, someone who says that we have a green supply chain cannot just claim that without a certification.
Okay.
So they would draw down what is their supply chain. They would have to recognize that the people they buy those materials from also have green certifications or comply with some uh, social equity uh, certification around like employee benefits and stuff like that. So then
Sure.
they leverage on the fact that I work with you because the industry recognizes that you do this, and then I'm leveraging on your good performance as my good performance because I'm buying
Sure.
from you, and then somebody external like maybe an ISO compliance process will recognize that okay, so this supply has been validated, and then so the question now is, if I have multiple brands in my company and I certify one of the lines, that certification shouldn't be allowed to be used across my other lines because it's only the supply chain for one line. So then I would need to authenticate all the different supply chains within my different
Mm,
products. So that that I think they're independent companies that do the validation and the accreditation for you in different countries and different regions. Yeah. Because someone out of India will probably have language and technicalities and internal policies to validate what is coming out from India. And then someone from Malaysia then needs to see what is Malaysia's requirement. And then both need to connect to what global supply chain demands. And then all of that gets put into the master report or the certification. So then after that, it's a matter of saying that we continue to meet the requirements of the certification, and then the certifications will be updated. So updated in 2000, and then maybe it's a 5-year renewal process, and then that whole line tracing will be done again. Yeah.
mm,
So supply chains are the easiest at the moment to authenticate. Yeah.
right. Uh, this is an area that is a little trickier in the US, in Malaysia, because it's not so clear sometimes. For example,
Hmm.
it's so clear in the US because it's FDA that, if it's organic,
Okay.
it's like one
More
body. Here,
established, more mature environment.
yeah, here it's not quite so straightforward. You see people getting certified in Australia for organic, for example, or humane from an Australian thing. And and then sometimes you see it's labs, the and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but all you see is the certification, you
Yeah.
know. So it's really a buyer beware situation if you really whereas could not get away with that in a much more controlled information environment
And
like
that's the reason why it's ESG, it's environment social governance. So the governance component is the is where you get investment. So you can approve certification of a whole bunch of things, but if your governance doesn't match your certification like process, then you still won't get investment. And that's what ESG investments are. And ESG investments also track how you are decarbonizing your supply chain. So, better products, better materials, more compostability, all these kind of things, or reconstituted plastic. So all of this participates in decarbonization, and that's materiality of your product. Yeah.
okay. Um, then, as you mentioned earlier, it's awards is another thing. That's
Yeah.
another clear indicator that you are complying or uh, doing things better.
Mm.
Uh, I had a I just had a quick Google about it, and are they any good? Some of these, there's obviously some. I mean, like we've received at the park, we received like a sort of a green
Architecture
award,
award, right? Yeah.
architecture or Institute of Planners or something like that. So if you're in the park spaces, had
Yeah.
some kind of
It's industry
value.
led. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also see some industry awards that are going to like IOI, and I'm just wondering, yeah,
Wherever you
I mean,
go,
that was my
there's
first
always a
reaction.
legit one,
The
and
minute
there's
I
a
see that,
legitimized one.
my eyes roll back because it's like I kind of know, I kind of know how these things work. Because to even, I think uh, be really honest, even when we got the award, the company had to apply for the award and like they had to buy a table at the award
Yes.
dinner or, I mean,
Sustainable award.
you have to pay to play to get the award as
Yes.
well.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And a lot of times these tend to go to bigger players.
Yes, because they have the energy, the manpower, the resources to
They
write the
they
report,
even they even have like the
to
laborers, so there's
apply
actually
for the
people doing it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I remember when we got that first one. Was it the green? It was a green some award, and when we went to the
Green
dinner,
Building Award.
it was just all large property people, and they were looking at us like, "Who the hell are these people?" Because it was like all these big uh
But you were
big
part of a
property
big
developers.
thing. You were part. Madini
Not
Park
really.
was a part of the big thing.
Not actually, no, because we didn't do the park under the auspices of a big development company, you know, like Gamuda or that kind of thing.
I guess it
And
depends on the categories. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's not very clear. I don't think that's very good for. I mean, the other thing I'm sort of thinking about is like it's not easy to look at this information as just a casual observer. You know what I mean? Because a lot
Yeah.
of this is so industry specific. You know, you're just trying to impress uh,
Okay, I think
financier.
the reason why is because if you look at this migration to green sustainable implementation on a maturity scale, not mature, very mature, as it grows, right, it gets reiterated. So right now, unfortunately, in Malaysia, we're still at the point where we are trying to induct developers, we're trying to induct manufacturers, we're trying to induct all these people into thinking and doing sustainable. So that once they start practicing, they will start communicating it to the consumer, and consumers will migrate. So you see the first generation of people who bought into townships like Garmuda Gardens, like Setia Eco Park, that first generation that bought in were really top dollar paying people who had to buy into this idea of living in a garden as opposed to a housing area. So they've been living in these homes for the last maybe 18 to 20 years. And today, you open a new plan for development with similar assets, people don't ask you questions anymore. They just buy. So the buyer market is ready now for living in that kind of garden community. So in the
Yeah,
next 20 years, it's easy sell, because space becomes more valuable. Yeah.
except I have been sort of out of it for a few years now, but I do
Yeah.
remember when we were involved, it wasn't, it's not baked into the development. Like you would think that some of these larger developments, you would bake in a composting area. That means you can just, you could have a recycling. No, no,
Uh,
not in the ones here, not the ones that we've been
the
involved
one
with.
TKL got. Yeah. Got.
So what happens is that it's not baked in. There's no sort of central compost area. There's no
Right.
central recycling area. So what
Yeah.
happens is it requires a civil society involvement.
Yes.
So they will sort of kind of
Actually,
fight for.
if you take a big step back, you
Yeah,
look at it from the policy point of view. If KPKT, which is the department that talks about housing and waste management, makes it a requirement for all new developments to have waste management processes that, number one, removes organic waste from the landfill. Number two, manages bulk waste properly. Number three, recycles as many things as they can before anything that goes into the landfill gets charged an extra fee for going to the landfill. So there's a landfill tax, right? So if they at a policy level develop that, number one, they will force all these developers to comply to VSG. Immediately, you're doing the SDGs already on
yeah,
SDG 9, 11, 12, 13.
yeah.
Because it's not polluting the water table. It's not taking up land into, wasteland and stuff like that. And then the consumer that then lives in this space starts developing new behaviors. But to migrate the consumer, the people who are living in these spaces, you need NGOs, you need social workers, you need people who go and teach them how to garden, because these are
Okay,
lost people,
let me tell
you
you
know?
how my experience kind of sort of it just falls apart actually
Yeah.
because it's not baked in. But you will have a core few people that really want to do better. They're more knowledgeable. It's not an organized NGO that's doing this. It's probably the what do you call
Local
it, the
residents.
tenant, the resident community that's
Yeah.
doing this. And then what happens is that they also are they also try to do things just based on their knowledge level.
Yep.
So it's actually quite hard to
Yep.
interact with them sometimes also because they're not necessarily so inclined to listen to you because they think
Yep.
they want to just grow vegetables in an area that you really cannot grow vegetables.
Yeah. No,
For,
because
for example. Yeah.
they just don't know. They don't know any better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that complication. So I've actually participated in at a communication stage, and it always falls apart. And the next part it falls apart is without really knowing how to actually do it. You are really relying on maybe like one or two incredibly well-intentioned,
Yeah.
knowledgeable
Yep.
people in leadership positions that can actually
Yep.
make it happen.
Yep.
Um, and then the other thing that happens also is sometimes it moves from a developer
Mm.
management to tenant committee management,
Yeah.
and
Then it's very
that is also
political.
a mess because then it becomes what became a corporate developer who's really not that interested, wants to do the lowest money value intervention,
Yeah.
move into the
High
hands
impact,
of
low cost.
yeah. Then it moves into the hand of tenants who are also not wanting to spend money or politically infighting.
Yeah. So
So
I did many, many years ago did this project for Elmina, which is Sime Darby. So we went in, we worked with the team that first planned Elmina Gardens. Can't remember, this is probably like 2015, 2016 maybe. No, definitely 2015. Because I used this as a case study when I went to Japan. And that was 2017. So it means I did 2014, 2015. So when we went in, we worked with the initial design team to look at how much space they want to create as a community garden. And when we did the speech, we did not just do the design of community garden. We actually did the community engagement component. So there were flats nearby, surrounding and overlooking this garden. So it kind of reminds you a little bit of, you remember there's this fairy tale where the mom is pregnant and then she looks over the garden, the witch's garden, and it's got all these like beautiful vegetables, and the dad sneaks in and he steals veg. So that was our metaphor for this project, which is how do we help the low income community that is overlooking this high income community garden find space to build and grow their own foods, which is side by side. So then there can be an exchange between the Elmina community and the other areas, which is also governed by Sam Dhabi. So these low income flats were part of Sam Dhabi's development in the past, because that area was full of oil palm estates. So when we started with the low income community, we did assessments of where the growing plots were, what were they farming and growing, what kind of what do you call this, skills were there in the community. And so by the time we designed for the engagement with the buyers of the Elmina Park, we had a very clear identification of what goes well in the area, what sells, what do people consume. So there could be an exchange and a market. So we designed the whole program for them. And guess what? Just as they were going to launch the Elmina Park, they cut us out totally. We didn't get invited for meetings. Our fee had, we had come to the end of that scope. And they hired some very popular couple who were permaculturists, who actually have a farm far, far away in like Kelantan or something, but they're Chinese from Ipoh. And in the end, they were the faces that were in the Elmina project when we did all the groundwork. And then we never got to the point where we were running the program for the community at Elmina to start their composting, to start their gardening, to manage their waste in the multiple tier, because we were the ones who designed that whole process for them. And at the end of the day, the politics takes over the good work. I want to do it because I want to do those projects. Yes, getting paid is great. That's what keeps us going. But it's really sad that you just get discontinued. And I feel like there's no accountability for these things. So when you design a program as a developer, like you said, they want the lowest cost, but they want the highest outcome. And within all these reporting processes, if they really follow the ESG, the governance wouldn't have allowed them to just discontinue one contract and replace like a brand facing entity. And today I don't think that park's fully activated. And it's really sad because I think they had like 300 garden plots. And there's even criteria of how you rent a garden plot. The rules of engagement, because like some people will compete, and then if they have a market, or if plucking each other's like produce, if they bring children into the garden, they cannot bring pets into the garden. So there's a lot of things that we develop their guidebook and stuff like that. So there's a lot of intelligence out there, and then I never see how it gets sent to the residents who then move into these spaces, because Elmina reports itself to be a very SDG compliant development. So it's got, and because Elmina is Sime Darby, and Sime Darby does composting of palm oil fronds and fruit bunches, so they know composting. They can bring in good quality compost into the garden space, and that was one of the things that we tried to align their other businesses into the Elmina setup, because they use it a lot for their landscaping and stuff. So it is doable to network all these things into place, but it takes stamina, and you have to know the business really well to design these kind of bigger solutions. Yeah.
The other thing that's missing, which is, something I found as well, is, you can do stuff and no matter how good it is, it sort of falls off a cliff when the content isn't communicated as well. It doesn't stick as something of value in the information space. Maybe we don't have we don't have known platforms for uh, communication of like what are good ideas in the world for sustainability, what's green. We're not as there's no tree hugger, for example, uh, the tree hugger side, or there's no there's no real timeout with the 10 best green things you can do this weekend, or the 10 green best companies you can buy from. That kind of information
We used
is
to have this
not.
magazine called Time Out KL, and they used to highlight these, like, 10 best things you can do for the school holidays. Then or like they'll talk about like all the schools that have eco projects, especially like at the time when people are subscribing to international and private school, like when they're signing up. So that season will have like a school guide, or we'll have like a food guide,
Yeah, no,
like,
I understand
yeah,
that.
but
What
it
I'm
doesn't
saying is that
report anymore.
what I'm saying is the lane isn't about sustainability. You know,
No, 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 it's not. It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
just
that
general,
that,
yeah,
and that's where it falls off the cliff because it's not gathered into this lane that people understand and say, because at the
yeah,
end of the day, the communication drives consumers to buy things from the right corporations who are doing the right thing, right? That's the general playbook,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you you're doing the right thing. It gets communicated to your end user, your end buyer, and they take the decision. Okay, maybe you cost $1 more, but it's worth it because you're doing this and this and this. Actually,
yeah.
another similar area to this is actually CSR.
Mm.
Uh, you know, companies have money for CSR,
Yeah,
which they're compelled to spend on, but it doesn't enter very often does not enter a sustainability lane, you know,
yeah.
except in the most old fashioned way, planting things in plastic bottles, gotong royong, pick up waste, plastic waste.
So the thing is, right, I feel like when they discuss CSR at the C-suite level, they kind of know quite a lot of stuff because they are the more educated ones, because it is a business decision. The challenge becomes when it trickles down into the marketing department, who don't get
Yeah,
trained in these things. So they don't
yeah.
have ESD. They don't understand the SDGs. They don't participate in compliance unless the compliance team sends them okay, give me a report on like how many programs are we running this year? Of these programs, how many are environmental, how many are social, how many are, um,
Mm-hmm.
marketing, for sports or for environment or for whatever. So this is the disconnect in the communication. The compliance team breaks down the conversation so much that the marketing team is purely reporting numbers. So there's
Yep,
no
yep,
sense
yep.
of like, oh, if I designed a program better, then we as a collective can produce higher value reports. You know, we and the thing is, because annual reports are every year, so 12 months sometimes are not long enough for you to see a sustainability project through. You may
Mm.
require 3 or 4 years. So then when they're at the point of design, they need to be designing it because they understand SDGs and they understand what are the goals and targets they're trying to achieve. They can design their programs to say, okay, this is our overall view for this program. It's going to take 4 years. Now we're in parcel one, phase one. Now we're in parcel 2, phase 1. Now we're in parcel 3, phase 1. And then that's a year. Within the, like, 4 months, 4 months, 4 months, they go through those 3 parcels. Then in year 2, they go into phase 2, and then they go into parcel 3, parcel 4, parcel 5, parcel 6. And that's when the reporting makes sense. So it is really important to understand theory of change. So you know what you're trying to change when you're looking
Mm.
at the SDGs and the implementations. And then you must also understand how to log frame and account for this change. And when you're doing this, you're actually using design thinking to decide how might we make this thing apparent in the work that we do. How do
So
we
let's let,
move
let, let's
consumers,
unpack.
you know?
Let me just unpack that because
Yeah,
so there are companies that are rich enough to actually hire people to teach them about do a corporate training with SDG and ESG. We're gonna try and enter
yeah.
that lane. Who does that who is that course targeted for? Which department in a corporation?
So if they're
Senior
doing it for the
senior
first time,
executive, senior executive
yeah, if they
management.
If there depends. So sometimes these courses sit within MBAs, you know. So the when they take an MBA, they will give you like within a particular module there will be design thinking. Within a particular module there will be log frame development, program accountability processes. And theory of change will always be part of brand value development, mission vision statement, alignment. So then the executive has to come back and do their homework, right? It's not just by themselves. It's sitting with
So
their
who
teams and actually executing these things that they learn.
so who is currently getting trained and who should be getting trained? You're saying that. I mean, my impression is that it
Everyone will
tends
be trained.
to. Okay, but let's break that down a little bit more in more detail because companies can't afford to train everybody. It's like it is a budget issue as well. So their first target is always upper level management, right? It's usually executive, heads of department, that kind of thing. Then you're saying that who is the compliance team? Is that like a technical, like some kind of technical, like the engineering team or something like that?
It depends on the organization. Sometimes
Okay.
it could be a subsidiary team that is developed with several people from different divisions. So then it's got
Roughly,
organizational
roughly
representation.
what department is it? Technical? Is it human resource? Is it marketing?
Give me an
It's
industry because it's hard to respond to it. Like there's no generic answer to this. So if
hmm,
you have a specific industry, so for instance, if you are school, right? So you are an educationist, you have compliance with IGCSE, baccalaureate, whatever the
yeah.
module, whatever the bigger level Cambridge or whatever you're following. So you've got your uh head of academics that needs to be sitting in that conversation. You need to be HR needs to be in that conversation. A few teachers that do different kinds of things, like maybe the teacher who's in the sports ed space, in environmental space, in the skill space. So they represent a group of students as well as an interest within the students. And then
So
that in a
let's say
best case
something
scenario,
like Maybank because there's a lot of banks and
yeah,
they have money for corporate training. They also have money for CSR.
yeah,
Who are the target
yeah.
departments in that? You've worked
So
with banks
right now
before,
these
right?
banks,
Yeah.
yeah. And now they already have sustainability departments.
Oh,
So there is a unit. Oh,
but
yes, it's a
what
sustainability
is that
unit. Or
department? What is that department under?
under,
Yeah,
usually it's under
human resource.
outreach and community.
Yeah,
Outreach and community.
it's not like a
Yeah. And then
sub of human resource. No, or is it marketing?
it could be. No, I think it's standalone. It doesn't sit in marketing. I think they've been heavily criticized to park this under marketing. Yeah. So now it's really in the community outreach space. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so then they design or fund programs which fit their annual goal on what they want to achieve in terms of the reporting. So they reverse engineer it. Yeah. So they know what they want to achieve and then they work it backwards, which is basically theory of change. Yeah.
All
So
right.
when they send people to be trained, there's three ways of training, right? So one is you attend a larger program and then you get trained in bigger high level modules, deeper value modules.
So
Number two, you send a couple of people for like, several months shorter programs, or you send people for CPDs. So they take specific topics within the larger sustainability context. So for instance, if it's a bank and they're looking at infrastructure, they may get their investment portfolio people to attend, say, green building CPDs. So
mm,
then they understand, okay, materiality, waste management, um, what do you call that? Embedded carbon. So they learn all these things, and all this will feed into decarbonization of the supply chain. Then that will feed into financing. So there's a lot of tracks that you can follow. And so as an organization, it's really important how you define what you're doing in terms of getting to, net zero, or you're getting towards, how to say, higher compliance with the SDG targets and stuff. Because most targets, I think it's 7, 9, 13, 11, 12, 14 that have like decarbonization goal sets of targets. Yeah. So
Okay.
they do need to learn the 169 targets and how to express those targets within their industry or their work. Yeah.
Just
Yeah. And then sometimes they even do it
map
as a
it out
lunch
in
and learn.
terms of corporate size because we tend to hear a little bit more of it coming from a large corporation, and there's a lot of large corporations here. Nestle, Maybank. There's like these big corporations. Uh, they're more likely to appear on your timeline, and you'll hear a little bit
Yeah.
more about it. Um, I still don't see them funding more innovative work in this area, right? Let's see.
Because they are risk adverse.
Yeah.
They are risk adverse. They're never gonna fund anything innovative. Never.
Yeah. Problem.
They will only fund things that they can measure and have been accredited or recognized by somebody else. They will never do anything new. Especially finance industry, never do anything new.
Hmm.
Extremely risk adverse.
One
Yeah.
way out of this is what happens in Singapore because Singapore has like N parks, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Which is quite a vibrant kind of body. And what happens is
Yep.
they become the negotiator and actually the middleman for like maybe so they'll be like a clearinghouse for this stuff and connect large corporations like Mitsui or Mazda or whatever to maybe a program, you know, because the people in NParks are more evolved, more knowledgeable, more sophisticated in the understanding of sustainability and environmental issues and stuff like that. And they also have more
Yeah.
trust from the corporate side, Whereas when you and I go into one of these meetings, they don't
Yeah.
necessarily believe us, right?
No, also you have to understand that NFAX over the years has produced a lot of high value reports. So they can tell you the OTTV of a building, how hot the building is absorbing or
Yeah,
dispersing heat.
yeah.
They have research around how much water the ground in a particular area will absorb if you did like a rainwater garden in a particular area. And it will also quantify how much of these, how to say, get avoids how to say flooding urban. So they have the data and that's why people trust them.
Is there an equivalent in Malaysia? Even Prim? Yeah, yeah. No.
I wouldn't say no. I work with film. No, I don't feel.
Yeah, I find that in Malaysia, what happens
Yeah.
is it starts to splinter into like very academic, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to really sort of social community welfare, public engagement, that kind of world.
Yeah.
Uh, it becomes much more sort of academic scholar type interest in this, and you can see that can be so like even in when I went to a conference in Singapore, you can see that disconnect from the parks and recreation people and the conservation people. You know, even though they're kind of working in the same space, they have different ambitions.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And it sort of changes what
I
they
feel
want to do, what they're interested in,
the
what do they
sense.
want to.
I I feel like the sense of professionalism
Yeah,
is what's in question here. If
so
you individually feel I want to be a professional in this sector, you will strive to develop your knowledge and your relevance in a place which you work in beyond the place. That means I work for Perak State Park and I'm doing community, I'm doing conservation assured tiger landscape. So I don't know anything about tigers, but I know about community. So I will continue developing myself in the community engagement space. I will continue to network within anthropology and I will continue to network within conservation communications. But that's me as an individual with that attitude. So if you do not build your professionalism, you just depend on the job to keep giving you a new position over time because you've been there long enough. Then that's where you die lah. And that's where organizations become mundane and they don't innovate and they don't have these great ideas and they can't solve problems. They depend on external problem solvers to come in. And then the challenge is the culture is different. It's going to cost them money. And this is the other thing. When I used to work for Charigali, which is an oil and gas company, we used to have this thing called lunch and learn. And when I was in that scope, so I was the people capabilities. What was I? Something like people capabilities. So my job was to find interesting people to invite for lunch, and that was kind of how I feel like I brought in some. This is pre green drinks, slightly before green drinks, and I remember bringing someone from Wetlands International to come and talk about regenerative land development and looking at fringe spaces that are abandoned and allowing it to thrive as wetlands. So this Beluga idea was part of that larger construct. And because these are like government land that's been like how they've already logged or whatever, and sometimes in Petronas we have land banks that we use under TOL. And so the idea was if you let it thrive, then it contributes to society in larger ways. So we had these lunch and learn programs that anyone can attend, and then you come for lunch and learn, you get lunch. So sometimes people would just come for the lunch. So the lunch was the how to say, was the bait, to get people in the door. But they walked out learning something totally different, not within our
Sure.
industry, but it creates a sense of, hey, now I know something new. You just came for like this refresher, and then you meet different people, different colleagues from the organization, and so that became a culture for a while, where people attend lunch and learn, and then they will like participate in something, and they actually have an opinion, because part of lunch and learn would have, because we have to account for this money that we're spending, people will have to answer a survey, like so it will take us some time to produce those surveys to link specifically to the topics that we run the lunch and learns for, but it did tell us internally what people were thinking about it. And again, it comes
Mm,
back to the fact that it's an oil and gas company and he had the money to do it. So that means my time cost doing this project was accounted for.
sure.
We did not hire someone external. It was someone within the organization that spent maybe like 4 hours in a week to produce this program once a month. And then the capacity that we could take was maybe like 40 people in a room. So there's a lot of these kind of like thinking at the business development unit to identify, okay, how are we making our people relevant over time? Yeah, because in any
So
role
the
in the organization, everyone needs to become leaders at some point. Yeah, that was just the mindset. Yeah.
so Malaysia doesn't have like an NPOX equivalent. Is it FRIM? Is FRIM the only like
No, we have Jabatan Landscape Negara.
yeah, which I never really hear about. I never see
They're
anything.
there. They always get sidetracked
Oh
because
really?
it's, yeah. How was the history? I guess to a large extent they straddle between JKR, which does the roadworks.
Right, right.
So they have to do landscaping in public spaces.
Yeah.
And then they get some parks, they don't get all parks. So some parks they have to do like maybe in so like it's harder to say in KL and PJ because there's a lot of private parks run by smaller like entities. But yeah, so for instance, like say if you look at a small town, right? Like okay, like say JB for instance. JB, certain parks are run by the royal family or companies that are hired to do it, right? Then there are some parks which are the government manages the park. Those ones will be the Jabatan Landscape Negara.
Yeah, when you say the government, it's usually like city, right? It's like DBKL or
It could,
JJ,
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
whatever
It
it
could
is.
it could be
Yeah.
part of a DBK, city council. Yes,
Right.
yeah.
Because that's actually in New York, that's what it is. It's the New York City. New York City is the governing body for the parks. And I think there's like a parks, whatever. But the parks are actually, that body is pretty evolved. They understand programming, they understand engagement with the public, all this kind of stuff,
Mm.
Whereas here, we're just dealing with basic maintenance. People they're just
Yep.
interested in basic maintenance as opposed to actually providing quality of life and,
Yep. I think you in many ways, like in many ways, it really reflects our maturity
yeah, it
in
does. It does.
governance. You
Yeah.
know, people, the way a manager within a landscape department functions versus a manager in a landscape company functions, because the manager in a landscape company is selling ideas to bring in income to the company, so they're going to always be more innovative, they're always going to be pushing boundaries, they're always going to be risk taking, they're always going to do
Actually,
brand
not
based.
really, not really.
Really? Hmm.
It's really more, it's very, very, very basic, actually. They're just,
Really?
yeah,
I mean, I work with Ian. I look at Ian, right? I'm like, this guy, where's he getting his ideas
inch
from?
is like
He's
almost like
so
inch is almost like a unicorn, I think, in comparison to your average, you know. The average, I've interacted with landscape, like landscape companies that work with big projects, like say, Eco, which is a nice big company. They got money to spend and what have you. And it's very perfunctory. What they do is very,
right.
it's not really, it's very, surface. It's just to make you look pretty, you know, it's
Mm.
really,
But
just,
when you go into like the government departments, you have tender, you have preferred vendors. It becomes a lot more like harder to navigate as an independent organization to do. So that's why they have all this hierarchy and punja kuasa and all these things. I feel it's too bureaucratic. Sometimes some things just need to be done because everybody has high knowledge about what is good. And getting to a point where the knowledge of what is good is common knowledge is difficult. That shows maturity of the idea in a space or a people in a place. So I guess in New York it's a lot more. They're very innovative. They're very brave to, like, okay, we're gonna do the High Line. And everybody goes like, what you gonna do? You get what I mean?
actually, what is also missing here is you also need a civil society that is evolved as well. Because,
Demanding this, yes.
yeah, I mean, you can build a highland, but if you don't have a civil society that's going, cool,
Yes.
you mean you're going to get the best landscape designer in the world to come in that they actually
Yeah.
know each other? You know what I mean? Whereas,
Yeah.
here we don't recognize, like,
You look
we
at
would do,
Singapore's gardens by the bay and the super trees, right?
yeah,
I mean, when they first pitched the super trees, I think everybody thought they were crazy and everybody thought it was
yeah.
like a waste of energy and all sorts of funky things. And I think when you do innovative solutions for sustainability, environment, and society, there is a risk you have to take. There is a huge amount of badgering that you have to survive, because by the time they get it, you already moved on to like 20 other things. You're not going to feel the glory, but you will feel all the pain that comes with doing something that is unpopular. You know, I bet you if you spoke to some of the people who are part of those projects, they would have told you, yeah, people didn't believe in it. But today, everybody's like traveling into Singapore just to see that because it's iconic. So yeah, that's the
Although
thing Malaysia.
recently, I did you read about how they're building these green walkways in Canada? You read about that?
Sorry, green walls in where?
Green walkways, interconnected, covered green walkways that
Where?
will be down like downtown KL. I'll send you the link, and then
Really?
you can tell me what you think. I was quite surprised. Like, oh, okay, this is, I mean, this is the sort of
I
thing
mean,
that
if it's alive, then it's about landscape maintenance lah.
well, this is something you already see in Singapore. You see a lot of covered walkways. Nobody is suffering going to
Yeah,
catch a bus.
it's
You know,
comfortable. Yeah, it's comfortable to
they're
walk.
comfortable and it's beautiful. Like I've been for a long time, but I remember, it's green, it's got a covered walkway, and then sometimes I'm walking and I'm seeing, oh my god, even the trees, they put active fights in the trees.
Yeah,
They've
yeah, yeah.
actually gone and put like a collection of interesting funds and orchids and stuff like that to make
Yeah,
it
yeah.
even more beautiful. You
Curated.
know.
It's curated. The gardeners actually are trained in gardening. Like a lot
Yeah.
of good, like if you go to Putrajaya, there's a wetlands park. It's got 21 cells of wetlands. It was designed immaculately. It was maintained like crap.
Yeah.
All the cells have the same weed because they didn't know what to weed and what to leave. So instead of having different type of reeds in different cells, there's only one reed that is in all the cells. And they
Mm,
never went back to replenish the ones that were missing because they have like 100 gardeners who are not gardeners, they're just laborers. So
mm.
that's the difference between Singapore maintenance crew and sorry, there's a cat that's
Yeah, I mean, I
what
wish. I mean, it's like crying over spilled milk. But I wish they'd looked at how we were working in Edible Park and Heritage Forest. And we designed it, we programmed it, and we
yeah,
maintained it. I ran the
yeah, yeah,
maintenance department.
yeah.
It works a completely different way. With whereas most of the other spaces, uh, public parks, they are handed out to uh, um, contract landscapers. You know
Yeah, yeah.
who are profit driven. Whereas we were driven by the quality of our park. You know what I mean?
So, okay, so coming back
Yeah.
to SDG, ESG, and
Yeah.
ESD is if the park team understood their SDGs, yeah, so they understood
Yeah.
that this has to hit a triple bottom line,
Yeah.
then they would program it in a way that when they are doing all their good work in terms of making the park water sustainable, making
Yeah.
the park boost biodiversity, when the park is doing community engagement for good health, well-being, and education, when the park is producing these kind of programs,
Mm.
they gain by these to report these things that fits into their ESG. So the park
But you
wasn't
see,
just a
this is where
physical space.
if we go back to this problem of actually, how sophisticated. I mean, for example,
Mm,
when we were at the design and build phase of the parks, right?
mm, mm,
We're working with in a development company, Medini, and
mm.
the development company, Medini has landscape architects working for them.
Yeah.
It's in their teams.
Yep.
They have marketing people, they have landscape architects, but their focus is completely different from ours. We were trying to build an interesting, innovative park that would give had a point of view and give a reason for people to come. The
Mm.
land the landscape team was only interested in whether we were trying to cheat them. Cheat them. That means
Because the
were the
question that
trees
they
were
ask,
the trees we're putting in, did they match the market price? That is that is kind of like the interest level, is are you are you meeting market price for the trees you're putting in? And
yeah,
then the minute we are recommending trees that are outside normal landscaping type things, Layla, Layla, you can okay, just going around looking for things to eat like hose pipes and stuff. They're actually just not interested because,
yeah,
and we were trying to look for more native things. We're
yeah.
looking for diversity. And if they don't recognize it, they find it difficult to engage with you.
Because their core question was different. Your
Yeah.
core question was how do we make a park that
Yeah.
was biodiverse, community
Yeah.
engaged,
Yeah.
very exciting and unique in Johor Bahru? That
Yeah.
was your key question. Their key
Yeah.
question was how do we manage the company that's running the park?
Yeah. How
Different
do we
core
manage
question.
the budget?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes,
That's
that was
pretty much
it.
it.
And
Yeah.
that's why they were not landscapers. In that job that they were doing, they were not
Yeah.
landscapers. They were finance auditors
Sure.
with landscaping understanding. And that's the problem. When the two teams integrate, they're not integrating on the right core value. And that's
Mm,
what design thinking and ESD and theory of change develops the teams to do. And that's why the person facilitating the process has to be external. Because then that person holds space and is non-biased. They understand the overall goal, but they gain nothing whether you achieve it or not. The process is important. And the
mm,
process, if you think of uh, team development, is the Tuckman's model. So you form, form, storm, norm, perform. So these are the things that are required for the outcome to be as perfect as it can be. And storming can happen and end and happen and end and happen and end throughout the life cycle of the program of the project. Or it can be a really bad storm, and then you norm and you perform and you're really like, producing good work because everybody gets along. They know the boundaries, they know the skill sets available, they understand the language, talking the same language, whether you are two external teams working together as one big project team. So there are a lot of facilitation tools that are required to fasten the adoption of these things. And that's why you need a trainer that's experienced. So if you're just learning it as a theoretical thing, and that's the problem when people do MBAs, they go away, they do an MBA for themselves. They never come back and, impart this with people that they work with. So they have the knowledge, but nobody else does. And then if you go as a group to go learn something very introductory, it's just an introduction. You still need to have the attitude of self-development to still go and be curious and find out more and explore and be part of communities of practice, so that when you come back, then you have this value of contributing and developing the brand and the products within your organization. So it's not a one-off thing. It's not I just did this and I got like permaculture lah. You cannot just do a permaculture design certificate and then you're like a designer. It doesn't work that way. You have to do the hours. You have to be gardening. You have to know farmers. You have to know people who own land. You have to be part of earthwork projects. Then when you do permaculture design, it makes sense. It makes sense in terms of zoning. It makes sense in terms of water flow. It makes sense in terms of energy conservation. It makes sense in terms of native, non-native species. So design comes with not just the theory, but the practice experience.
Mm.
So it applies to anything you do, you know? And I mean, you produce amazing cocktails and dessert drinks. That did not happen overnight. Your syrups were not just from a book,
Mm.
right? There's a lot of experimentation. There's a
So
lot of testing. So design
there was a
thinking
lot
brings
of
you to that space.
discovery about relationship with local as well. It wasn't just about just F&B. It was also about can we grow it? Is it
Yes. And what do you do?
sustainable?
Your waste, right?
Yeah,
So your mulberry leaves
yeah,
became a product, because you were
yeah.
thinking of that. If I just composted it, it's like wasted energy. But if I used
Right.
it and did something else with it, then come on, who eats tempeh soaked in mulberry brine? It's like amazing stuff. It's a Chris Perry thing. So, but
But
that,
let's just reel it back to the whole, because I mean, I think at the bottom line is, I think when I look at things like SDG and ESG, it's
yeah,
working at such a basic tick level, and I wonder if the only way to change this kind of thinking is actually to work at really at a CEO level, because when you have a really a visionary CEO, that's when he starts to create opportunity. He says, "Let's try this." You know what I mean? Then when he's got a big enough thinking to understand that budget for a landscape upgrade, if I'm charging the same for landscape upgrade, but I'm getting all this other sustainability elements in it, we're getting wellness elements in
that's
it.
why tenders are important.
Huh?
That's why
What?
tenders are important.
Yeah.
Tender. You submit a pitch, right? In a tender, and you submit obviously a price list. And that's why tenders need to be PNC. You respect the tender process so that the
Mm.
best balanced choice wins.
I don't know if
But
that's true.
sometimes
Whenever when we put in tender, we've been advised to just go low. They're not looking for
that's
innovation. They're
the
not looking
Malaysian
for,
problem.
yeah, it's a
That's a
problem.
Malaysian problem.
Yeah, it's a
It's a
problem.
Malaysian attitudinal
Yeah.
problem. Yeah. Yeah. So coming
So
back to your thing
so
about train the
yeah,
CEO, but you need this knowledge to be within the organization. So yes, CEOs need to know, but we are at the point where climate change is happening, like it's already running away. It's
yeah,
too late to just train the CEOs. The young people are in the streets, rallying for better climate future. The Green
yeah.
Deal kind of failed us. So
Yeah.
Everyone needs to learn SDGs fast. The expiry
Well,
date is
okay, this is
2030.
okay. This relates to something I just wrote about, which is the synthetic versus natural fiber thing, right?
Yep.
And you know, this is now moved into a territory about. It's not about before when you talked about this, this was about sustainability, is about environmental impact in terms of like energy and pollution and stuff like that. But as I was
Yep.
writing this, I realized actually it's splitting into two. There is problem still remains. But then there's this new problem where it's actually a public health problem. Microplastics is
Yes.
now the gigantic,
Yeah.
close to the edge to a uh, existential crisis.
Yep.
So in a situation like that, who do you approach? I mean, because the problem is like if a corporation it's gonna ask me like, what are the biggest problems do you think we're contributing to as a corp? I would say your office probably, you know,
Mm.
all your hundreds of workers wearing polyester in air conditioning, you know, it's in a daily you're putting stuff into the atmosphere that's actually quite
I think
problematic.
it's the way it's framed. So if you said,
Yeah.
imagine a company where everyone
Yeah.
had a certain amount of time where they did not have to expend carbon to come to work, and they
Sure.
could wear natural fibers because it's not just safe and healthy for them, but it
Yeah.
also translates into, you know, hand produced fibers in the fields, to the processing, to the consuming. The cost and the burden of carbon on the planet will reduce. That romantic conversation will just make them go, "Oh my God, you're amazing." You get what I mean? It's how the communication is done. And I think when
But
COVID
back
came,
to my thing about who are you approaching now then to
yeah,
to have this conversation? Do you talk to the people who are running the offices to say, some of your biggest problems are in just your operationals, you
your
know?
CEO, your CEO, you
So
cannot
it
go
is
anything
CEO.
lower
At
than
the end of
CEO.
the day, it is the CEO. You really, I
Yeah,
think in a way, I
yeah, you need
think
the
that
operation and the
our,
executive. Yeah.
I think at our problem level right now, it is because that's actually how I entered into it. It was actually at a high level, Kazana,
Mm.
Kazana strategist. You need a big thinker to really just even start to do it. You know,
But you need stamina to keep permeating the space. So let me come back to the COVID thing.
and that's a good
So
point. I
before COVID, we could not imagine working from home. Just could not imagine.
Sure,
Skype
sure, that's
has
a
been
good point.
available
Yeah,
for decades, right?
yeah.
I come from Accenture, so we've been Skyping for years. And when we first started going into Zoom calls, we just jumped in the
Hey,
deep end
figure.
and we ran with it, right? And then companies realize, hey, you know what? You guys can do like 1 day work from home now that everything's so called normal, right? So new businesses will form around hot desking. New businesses will form around more transient staffing. New businesses may satellite their offices into other countries as well, but
Yeah,
operationally they function in one place. So the business space has changed a little bit, but the traditional institutions are still there, like banking. They never gonna allow you to do banking from home lah, because the whole security around it is not at the level which they can
figure.
find they're satisfied with. So it depends on the industry, it depends on the again the leadership. And then you look at all these like tech tech companies.
Sure.
Most of them are not even face to face anymore. They're just working
Yeah, yeah,
remotely.
yeah.
And like for us, all our conversations are totally remote. Like we meet up like once or twice a year, and that's about it, right? The rest
Right.
is just like casual conversations, and then we set
Sure.
meetings to have these calls, and then we go on these calls, and then we share what authentically comes to us from our practice. So
Right.
there's a spectrum lah, you know. And yes, we are wearing clothes that are breathable and non-polyester and linen on the other side. So
Okay, we've come to our hour. We kind of roamed around a little bit this time, but
mm,
I think because we are actively going to write up more specific pieces, we will
mm,
link it up and then we'll narrow it down to to whatever. But again, it does show you the problem is actually quite wide ranging.
Yeah.
It's very splintered. There's no one
Yep.
direction for solving this. And in some ways, just to bring it back to that CG, sometimes having a simple solution like CG doesn't solve the problem. You just have a
It's
tick
meant
list.
to trigger you. It's meant to trigger you into
Yeah,
something
yeah,
bigger.
yeah. But that's not what's happening at all. It's just becoming just like a list, and you think that you're solving
Yeah.
certain
Yeah.
issues with them. All right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you know what's the other thing you asked just
Yeah.
now? Sorry, was about governance, right? So the law is a big thing that I forgot. So if you have laws that say pollution is, non-forgivable, even with a fine, you may not be able to practice in that place anymore. That makes a difference. So upholding the
In
law
some
and
ways, that is the biggest
yeah,
change maker. When they force you to
yeah,
separate your garbage,
yeah,
that's when you see change. Like now in the supermarket,
yeah,
uh, the I mean,
plastic
it,
free.
it needed a government change. It wasn't the supermarket that made that
Yeah.
change. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because you
All
also
right.
have the people who produce plastic bags and they're an SME.
Okay.
So they want to keep having business. Yeah. So there's the lobbying on both sides. Yeah.
I don't know what this dog is eating. But chicken bone. All right. Okay.
Okay,
I'll catch
cool
up with
beans.
you. All right.
Bye.
Bye.